Meta is testing a cloud processing feature in Facebook Stories that, with user content, uploads unpublished photos from your camera roll to generate AI-driven suggestions like collages, recaps, or restyling. You may have seen versions of this kind of like in your updated iPhones. Maybe they'll show you a recap of your old photos. Well, now it's Facebook we're talking about. Although Meta claims these private photos will not train its AI models, it does retain the right to analyze metadata, including timestamps, faces, and objects, raising some obvious privacy concerns. The feature is opt-in and reversible for now.
They're not making the promise that they're never going to use these to train their AI models. What they're saying is we're not doing that now. And so when you're actually looking at the terms of service, what they're saying is like, we're not using this to train our AI models. Right now, what we're doing is we're actually using this to customize your personal experience. So basically, they are still using artificial intelligence from what I understand, but it's specifically trained to you. So that way they can recommend certain kinds of either features or certain kinds of stylizations or different kinds of filters or things along those lines. But they also are vague enough in their wording and their terms of service to where if and when they decide to expand this outward, they have the right to do so. They just have to slightly change their terms of service, and they are free to do so just like they've always done. They just update the terms of service with whatever they want to do. They're conditioning you. They do it step by step, small little baby steps until you just accept that you accept this. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's not that big of a leap to just say, oh, well, what are they going to do with my information? What are they going to do with my photos? What are they going to do with this? They're already taking X, Y, and Z. And so then they just take it to the next step. And then all of a sudden people are shocked that we're basically being replaced by artificial intelligence.
I think this is a generational conversation in the sense that those of us who grew up without all of this, those of us who grew up without cell phones, without smartphones, are going to find this deeply alarming, thinking that this is a hugely invasive move, that though you're rightly pointing out that we're buying into it step by step, until the generation that comes after us that grows up in this will absolutely buy into a world where this is not a problem whatsoever. They won't care that AI is training off of your personal information.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's second nature to a lot of these kids. Like I remember a day when it was super high tech when you could pop the floppy disk into the computer and play Oregon Trail in elementary school.
Yes.
That's what I remember a day before there was even Windows 95.
I remember those too.
Exactly. But these kids, they're coming up in an age where they're inundated with artificial intelligence and technology, and they take it for granted. And that's also a concern because they don't realize how invasive this has become because they don't have anything to compare it to. Whereas somebody like you and I, we actually have something to compare it to before all this crazy technology took over. And I think that's what's concerning is about this incremental step that Meta is taking when we know what their ultimate end game is, because they actually just invested $65 billion into developing artificial intelligence to ultimately replace content creators completely on the platform. And I've talked to multiple shareholders of Facebook, and they're all telling me the end game here is to actually replace human content creators, which is interesting because it's coinciding with when Mark Zuckerberg is saying, oh, we're becoming more of a free speech platform. Well, of course, because you're not going to have to worry about censorship if it's all AI-generated content creators that you control. Now you can have your own Overton window. You can sell to advertisers, and advertisers are never going to be pissed off because they're never going to say anything controversial or going against what any of them say. They're going to have complete control. And then what's going to happen to all the human content creators that actually help them to build? What they actually want to do is they want to just turn us into all-consuming blobs of flesh, and they control everything.
There's a deeper philosophical conversation that can happen around this. And I know that futurist novelists from, the 20th century explored this a lot, how humans would give a part of themselves to feed the machine, and the machine would take over. The classic HAL story from Space Odyssey 2001, right? You give your own expertise, the machine feeds off of it, and we're only feeding our own demise. And I don't see how we quite solve this problem right now because AI is just at that sweet spot where it's really improving a lot of human production. But it's very quickly getting to a point where Meta's case in point, it's going to replace humans in a way that goes to the heart and soul of what a person is, what creativity is, what humanity is.